Welcome back to Learning Experience Design for Changemakers, the show where we talk about creating ripples with impactful learning and the community of changemakers who make it happen. I am Renee Coster, Learning Experience Designer and Strategist, and today I am joined by Krista Spadt, founder of the Simple Gifts Project. Krista, welcome. I'd love to just start with you in your own words. Who are you and what is the Simple Gifts Project?
Great. Well, thank you. First off, thank you, Renee, for having me. This is an exciting, exciting experience for me. I've never been on a podcast before. So yes, I am Krista Spadt. I am a teacher. I actually started, a long time ago, 25 years ago. I have my experience in education, started off as a chemistry and science teacher, and then kind of took a little time off from that and went into other things. And in 2017, I did start the Simple Gifts Project, which is a 501c nonprofit, and we work with students and we work with young people, in scout troops and actually even just, individuals that want to help. And what we do, our main purpose is to spread kindness, one smile at a time. That's our little motto. And we do that by filling care bags, and we donate those care bags to area hospitals. And we have 3 different types of care bags that we've kind of developed over the years. The first and foremost is the smile bag, which is this yellow bag that has a little smiley face on it. And that's for kids who are about, 3 to 10. And that has things like coloring books and stuffed animals and Play-Doh and things. And there's a teen bag, which has some similar things, but for older kids, from 12 to 18. And then we also have a parent bag for those parents who have to take, their son or daughter to the hospital and they have nothing on them except their purse or maybe their wallet. And so it has like a power bar, it has a journal, it has a word find book just for them to do something too. It's hard. It's a trying time when you're, a parent and taking your son or daughter to the hospital. It can be really scary. So, and within each bag, there is also a card, a handmade card from whoever is filling it. And they write a little note, and usually they decorate it because it's students. We decorate them with stickers and artwork. But that actually is, I think that really kind of pulls it all together, and really allows it to be a little bit more personal. So for the person who does receive it.
Yeah, I
So,
love that the children are personalizing them and you've not only make the bags for the children, but the parents too, because you're right, it is a very difficult time to see a loved one, especially a child in that state.
exactly, exactly. And one of the ways that actually some of the hospitals, originally we were going to pediatric units, but a lot of pediatric units in the area have since closed. And so a lot of these hospitals now are using them in emergency rooms. And some of them are actually using them in ambulances. And kind of, again, because it's a trying time and it gives the kids something to do to take their mind off of whatever might be happening. So that is something that it has kind of morphed into that a little bit. And we actually donate to 4 different area hospitals, CHOP being one of the larger ones, but we
Mhm.
also donate to Doylestown, Grandview, and Abington right now. So, yeah.
That's a nice reach.
So Philadelphia suburbs, yeah,
Yeah,
in Philadelphia. So, yeah.
thank you. I want to step back to your origin story quick. I find that most founders don't start with the 5-year plan. They start with one moment that wouldn't let them go. You, like you said, you spent years teaching before Simple Gifts Project existed. That shift from classroom to nonprofit had to come from somewhere specific. Can you tell us about the moment that you decided to start Simple Gifts Project?
Yes. So I will say, first off, it wasn't one moment. There were like a couple different moments, and some seeds were planted. So the first seed was when my daughter was 9, and she was kind of concerned about someone she knew was in the hospital and was at CHOP. So she decided, she said, "Mom, I really want to donate money to CHOP. And so what I'm going to do is I'd like to sell candy canes. So I'm going to sell candy canes and then whatever we make." She's pretty ambitious. So she was able to do a lot of this on her own. I helped some, but she was able to raise $100 for CHOP. And so we donated that to CHOP. So that was when she was 9. So we're talking like 2010, actually 2011. So that seed was planted. Then about 2 or 3 years later, we had family friends whose son was admitted into the hospital over Christmas. And so he missed Christmas Eve, Christmas Day. That was all in the hospital. And he was only about 8 or 9 at the time. So we, as other moms and other people that knew that family, we were trying to figure out what can we do? What can we do? And we tried to help as much as we could. But then the son luckily recovered and everything was fine. But afterwards I talked with the mom and said, like, what was it like? What could we have done? Like, just to know. I was involved in our church at the time. And so what can we do for other people that this might be happening to? And so she said, one of the things she said, there were many things, but one of them was, it was so hard to keep him occupied. So there's a lot of downtime. So when you're in the hospital like that, yes, people are poking and prodding at you, but then the other, 22 hours are downtime. So yes, there's the TV, but we needed other stuff. So then another seed was planted. So that seed was planted. And then about 2 years later, in 2017, I kind of put all of that together. I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do with my life. Again, I had been teaching, then I had subbed, then I had kids, then I had subbed, then I was working as a moderator. I was doing all these different things. What do I want to do? And this kind of came about where I would be using some of my educational experience, working with students, and trying to promote this idea of kindness. So trying to promote just a sense of empathy, sympathy, kindness, caring in young and high school too, but young students, high school students, and just kind of building that foundation, which I don't think is often explicitly taught in schools. And so I that's how it started. So that's how it started. And
That is
yes,
a wonderful story. I like that it wasn't just one moment, that it was just these little things that added up and
yeah,
kind of blossomed.
right.
Wonderful.
Because I think a lot of times people think, oh, something must have happened to one of my kids. Luckily, that wasn't the case for me. But yeah, it kind of just blended all of these different aspects of life together. So
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, that's how it started.
That's great. I talk to a lot of guests whose work looks like it's about one group, but it's really changing to two. With Simple Gifts Project, the smile bags obviously help the kids and the parents. But from what you shared, the students packing them, that must have an impact on them as well. What
Yeah.
has surprised you most about how packing a bag changes the kid who's doing the packing?
Excellent. Yes, that's a really good question. And honestly, I'll be honest, I don't think when going into this, I thought, oh, everyone's just going to be so, oh, great, I'm packing a bag. This will be lovely. I'll help somebody. But especially with some of the younger kids, that is something that is kind of difficult. A lot of younger kids, particularly, I work a lot with second graders. So I go into
Mhm.
that's kind of where one of our outreach programs is with second graders in a local elementary school. And so empathy and sympathy are sometimes tricky. And so
Yeah.
sometimes when they're packing the bag, so this happened, I guess the first time that I worked with the second graders, and they were packing the bag, and just one or two kids out of 100, only
Mhm.
one or two, but they were like, oh, can we get one of these bags? Oh, can I have one of these stuffed animals? Oh, I think I'd like that Play-Doh. And so it was this idea that, yes, we are, yes, you are helping to do this for someone else because
Mhm.
someone else is in need. And that was
Right.
a concept that as a second grader is a little bit tricky. So that's also when I started thinking about lessons for the second graders and going into the classroom and trying to quote unquote teach kindness, because you can't, that's not necessarily a skill that can be taught, but you can model it, and you
Right.
can just kind of engage them in certain activities that will enable them to see it or experience it. So that was one surprise. That was definitely one surprise. And then I think the other surprise for me, for the older kids, so for the high schoolers, they often want to do more. So they want to find out, so what else can we do? So this is great. Like, I love packing the bags.
Yeah.
Can I pick more bags? What else can we do? And I even had one, this was about a year or two ago. I had someone who needed some hours for Honor Society.
Mhm.
And they're like, I really want to help what you're doing. So she actually helped me with some of my at the time I was doing a lot more with Instagram, and she was helping me with some of that because she knew Instagram a lot better than I did. So it was kind of a win-win, but the idea that they wanted to do more. So, what else can I do? Do you need me to help you do something else? And that was also, a little bit of a surprise, a really pleasant one.
Yeah.
Yeah, so a surprise. So I think it does, and a lot of kids that I do talk to have been in the hospital, have been in these situations. And they, I think they can therefore, kind of empathize a lot more, obviously, because they've experienced some of this, but thinking about how that would feel if someone gave them something or thought of them in some way or reached out in some way.
That's wonderful. Do you find that the children who have had those experiences, do they open up and start sharing?
The younger ones do. The younger ones do.
Right.
The high schoolers, they're not
Yeah.
going to share too much information generally. But the younger ones, absolutely. So a lot of times when I'm, kind of first introducing myself and they first get to know me and I show them the smile bag, we talk about hospitals and we talk about everybody. I have been, my uncle has been, this person's been in the
Right.
hospital. I've been in the hospital. Like they want to tell all their hospital stories. And so usually we have to kind of, trim that down a little bit, like, okay, last hospital story. And then, but it is interesting how they do relate. It is something that some of them can relate to, for
Yeah.
sure. For sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It reminded me of back when I was a Girl Scout. We would decorate lunch bags for Meals on Wheels.
Oh,
So we,
yes.
so in case people aren't familiar, it's a program to get meals out to people who can't leave their homes. And I think my mom was the Girl Scout leader,
Troop
and my
leader. Mhm.
aunt was part of the Meals on Wheels. And so they teamed up and decorate the bags, especially around holidays, which on the one hand, it was not something that a lot of us could relate to, like this idea of not being able to leave our homes.
Right.
But then there was not that, oh, I want what's in the bag thing. So it's interesting how
Yeah. Hmm.
that's an
Yes.
interesting, but it is something that has stuck with me as as a core memory throughout my life of, oh yeah, we this is what you do. You do something to make a difference.
Absolutely. And that's really what this is about. And we've worked with a lot of like Girl Scout troops, Boy Scout troops, youth groups. It's not just schools. It's that idea of spreading kindness, but what can I do as a person, as an individual, as a small little,
Mhm.
piece of this big world to make someone else's life a little bit better? And I talk a lot about that when I'm talking with the second graders, but also even with the high schoolers, that it doesn't have to be, we don't have to have this big, huge event, this big, huge project in order to make a difference. We can just smile at someone in the hallway or pick up someone's book if they drop it, or in the elementary school like at recess, if you see someone on the bench by themselves, go, hey, do you want to come swing with me, or those kind of small actions. And that's really what I'm trying to promote, almost as much as the bags are obviously important, but getting that kind of idea of literally spreading kindness is really, that's really the mission. That's like the real mission, and that is just one way that we do it.
Yeah, I like that idea of it's the little things that are creating ripple effects.
Yes.
And
Yes.
sometimes the best stories, when you're just talking to people or in these interviews, are rarely the big wins. They're usually the small moments where someone still carries them on years later. You've said before that your second graders will bring up your lessons years later if they see you, which says a
Uh-huh.
lot about what actually sticks with the kids. Is there a specific moment from one of those visits that has stayed with you?
That's a good question. So I'll say yes. There have been a couple moments, and I do this one lesson, and this one lesson I do pretty much all the time. So that's one. Like sometimes I'll change one if we tweak it a little bit, but this one the teachers really like, I kind of like, and the kids really get a good. So it's very basic. So you take food coloring, and you have this like tub of milk, and you take food coloring. And you just put little dots on, and each of those little dots of color is supposed to be a person, right? And then you take what I have is kindness, again, in quotes, which is really liquid dish detergent. And I put a little Q-tip and I just touch one of those persons, one of those little dots of color. And what happens is the color spreads. So, and then you see this so like if it's a red dot, and then you see this red dot blending in with the blue and making purple and blending in with the yellow to make orange. So you see this kind of literally spreading of kindness. And we talk about how kindness spreads. And when I first when I touch the Q-tip to the color, kid, like I love it. I absolutely love it. It's just like kids are like, oh my gosh, wow, oh wow, what did we do? What do that again? Can you do that again? And they
Yeah.
get really, really excited, and that's really fun. And I think that part sticks with them. And then we talk about afterwards what that means and what we can do about it and what kind of spreading looks like,
Right.
and that's when things start to stick. So you get them excited, you know what I mean? Like I get them excited, and then we figure out why you should maybe remember this.
Hmm.
And so I personally, maybe it's not one person that I've like one instance, but
Right.
I love that kind of just, I don't know, excitement for lack of a better word, for
Yeah.
when these kids see some of these activities. And actually the teachers, sometimes the first time they see it too, they're like, oh my gosh, this is great.
Yeah.
And they can use it too, because it's kind of an object lesson, I guess, where you can actually just
Right.
remember how that works and what that means. And so yeah, that's actually what probably I really like that. And with each of the lessons that I do, I'm definitely a type A person. So, hence me being a teacher, possibly. But anyway, and science. But I have a book. So I read a little book. We talk about that. And then I do some sort of demonstration. And then we have a little discussion. And then we have a craft. And so there's little parts of it. And it's very kind of, it's organized. Sometimes I'm wondering if it's too organized, but then the teachers, especially for second graders, like you kind of need that.
Yeah.
So each part, and I think there's enough in each of the lessons that maybe the story will stick with one student. Maybe they like
Right.
hearing the story and something will impact them and with the story. Or maybe again, like when I'm doing this demo, maybe that will impact a different student, a different kind of learner, right? So you
Yeah.
have some of the auditory learners, and then you have the visual learners, and you have, so I think that's kind of how I model my lessons. And I do enjoy seeing the light bulb, or again, the
Yeah.
excitement of each of those students during each of those parts. So
That is
yeah.
wonderful. And that is an
Yeah.
amazing visual for something that for a child, for anybody, like
Yeah.
the idea of spreading kindness is kind of abstract, but for that visual with the color spreading, that's an amazing way to get them to enable them to see it in action and put something concrete with what they're doing. So that's
Exactly.
really
That's what I'm going for. That's what
yeah.
I'm going for. And then, discussing it a little bit afterwards with, kind of more concrete examples about what can we do? So what could you do? So I really do enjoy these second grade lessons. I was always a high school teacher, so that comes with a different set of skills possibly, but I
Mhm.
enjoy just going in there, and it's a much different feel, and I do enjoy it.
It
It's
is.
fun.
Yeah.
It's fun.
So we've talked a lot about the students and being in the classrooms. I'm curious what actually gets people to say yes and show up. You've worked with everyone from high school key clubs to Girl Scouts troops and the second graders, individual families over the years. What do you think makes them say yes to partnering?
That's a really good question. And I will say that I am not, again, I do not come from a business background. So marketing and all these kinds of things, that's very new to me. And that's not where I shine. So all of these types of, so how do I impact this? How do I get someone to donate? How do I get someone to, be involved? Who do I reach out to? Where do I go? Has always been one of the harder parts of this whole process. And it's changed. So when I first started, I worked with a lot of Girl Scout troops, a lot of troops, and I kind of reached out to the Girl Scouts, of Eastern Pennsylvania, and that's how I got some of my people. And then I reached out just cold letters to high school, to key clubs and honor societies, and I got one or two of those. I found that schools actually were a little bit easier because they were often looking for events, looking for something to do. So you had these key club members, mentors, teachers, and the honor society mentor teachers that were looking for things for their students to do, for their students to be
Right.
involved in. So that's when I was like, oh, okay, that's a nice, a nice little niche. And so I got started with a couple different schools. And what I found was a lot of them return customers, so to
Yes.
speak. So I would reach out the next year, like, oh, would you like to do? Absolutely. Yes, this is great. And so I have a couple high schools that I've worked with for, one of them has been like 7 years. And then another has been like 3, 4 years, I think that the classroom does lend itself well to this kind of model, or this model that I
Yeah.
use. Then, so we were trying also to try other bigger events. So I went to like farmers markets. I went to like those kind of places and just had like a tent. And I thought, oh,
Mhm.
this is great. This will really get a lot of people involved. And I was surprised, I'll be honest, that there wasn't a little bit more involvement. Like people would donate and they'd be like, oh, this is great. This sounds lovely. But I never really got the, kind of impulse for them to continue with that after. So there are maybe 1 or 2 people who did. And then another interesting thing that again kind of morphed, I had some neighbors and some friends who needed hours for things like Holy Communion and Honor Society. And they're like, oh, Krista, can, my son or daughter fill bags? And so can we collect these? So we've had a couple of those. I've had a bar mitzvah, whatever you have to do for the credits for that, for the Holy Communion, the credits for that. And then recently, I had a few people who have actually received bags. So have received a smile bag. And so one of them actually said, we received this bag. Thank you so much. We'd like to pay it forward. So they got together with a group of their family friends and they filled bags. So they filled, I think actually that group filled over 100 1 year and 50 1 year and 50 the next year. And then that person told someone that they knew from their school. And they now, so last year for the first time, they had a neighborhood yard sale and they donated all of the proceeds to Simple Gifts. And they ended up filling 160 or 170 bags last year. And they did it again this year and they filled 320. And their daughter happens to have some health issues. And they came from Florida up to this area for medical reasons for her. And so they said that this is a really good way for them to kind of give back, but not have to like
Right.
do all that. I said this worked for them. So that was a very long answer, but it really does morph, and things that I think
Yeah.
might work really well don't necessarily. We did another event, like just for kids, and we had like face painting and everything like that. And I thought maybe that would really, and that was good. It was a nice event, but that didn't really kind of get the motor running as much as some of the other things, and it just kind of organic changes. That's really what so it is hard. I do have a lot of really, really faithful donors too.
Mhm.
So Giving Tuesday is a huge thing for us. So we just have like donors that are just, and they're not a lot of them are big donations. A lot of them are smaller, certainly, by some standards, but yeah, it's worked for us. It's worked for me.
Yeah.
I mean, I teach part-time still.
Mhm.
So this is a nice way for me to kind of balance it all. Yeah.
Yeah. I love how all this conversation keeps coming back to the small actions and how they big, because a lot of us here make a difference and assume it has to be really big to count, right? But
Mhm.
everything you've built seems to be around the opposite idea that one small simple gesture is enough to matter to someone, and then that just grows, like the garage sale.
Yeah,
And
I know. That was amazing.
yeah.
Mhm.
If someone listening wants to bring a little bit more of that into their own life this week or in the future, where would you tell them to start?
Well, first, I mean, no, I was going to say my website. No, but yeah. So I think twofold. So I think all of us can bring kindness to our lives, right? So I think all of us can share that kindness with everybody. So, whether you're at the supermarket and you smile at someone, or someone's trying to find something in the aisle and you know where it is, like help the person. You know what I mean? I think that's just these small little gestures make such a big difference in that person's life, but it also makes a big difference in your own life, right? So it does add a quality of life there. So I think we all can do small things like that. If you want to get involved in Simple Gifts Project, which of course I would promote, you can certainly, I have a website. It's simplegiftsproject.org. I have lots of photos and all different things that we've done over the last little bit. I do have an Instagram and Facebook account, so you can reach out to me at the website. I am doing it myself. So the messages will come directly to me. So I will email you as soon as I can with any kind of questions, or if you have a son or a daughter or niece or nephew, a granddaughter or a grandson who are involved in a Girl Scout troop or involved in a Boy Scout troop or any other kind of group that you think this might lend to, or if you have a neighborhood that's very generous, and we work with all sorts of different people, and I try to morph whatever works well for that particular group, whether it's a small group, a large group. I try to make it as easy as possible. So, yes, so please contact me. I would love to hear from any of you.
Thank you. And Krista, I have loved hearing about your Simple Gifts project and the way you have created these lessons and made it impactful for not only the people receiving those smile bags, but also the people who are putting them together. It's an amazing experience and way to create positive ripples. So thank you so much for coming on today and sharing with us.
Well, thank you for having me. I really appreciate this opportunity. I really do.
If what you heard today resonated, go check out Simple Gifts Project at simplegiftsproject.org, where you can learn to get your school, troop, or family involved in packing a smile bag. As Krista said earlier, no act of kindness, no matter how small, is ever wasted. That's what creating ripples is all about. Thanks for listening to Learning Experience Design for Changemakers. I'll see you next time.